So they wake him up and tell him, "We're pretty sure we haven't done anything to anger our gods. Might you have done something to anger yours?" And Jonah suggests that if they think this is the case, maybe they should throw him overboard. They're way out at sea. Jonah's effectively asking to be drowned. The crew says no at first, but later they decide he's right, and they throw him over, and then comes the whale part that everyone knows about. That's what it takes for him to finally decide that maybe he's in trouble. He prays to God. It's kind of a pretty poem, by the way. And God intervenes so the whale spits him up onto dry land, and then he goes to Nineveh, and everyone in Nineveh really gets with the program from the king on down. They repent in a big way. And Jonah isn't happy about it. He gets mad. He goes out in the desert and argues with God about destroying Nineveh. He wants Nineveh destroyed? Yeah, but the bigger point is he's arguing with the God of the Old Testament. The all-powerful white-beard guy who used to strike people dead. Doesn't that seem a little insane? Shouldn't Jonah be a little more afraid? You think Jonah was suicidal? No, I mean, not necessarily. Then what's your theory? You sound like you've been putting a lot of thought into this. You must have one. No, sorry, I'm just a bike messenger. I don't get paid enough to theorize. Hailey, he said, his tone a change of subject in itself. I know, you're ready for work. I've got to get up and dressed and out. I'll hurry. I was already sliding his Bible back onto the bookshelf. Jack was a newsman for the Associated Press, a Midwestern transplant to California by way of, apparently, everywhere. Photographs on the far wall of his studio, Jack's own amateur work, attested to the width and breadth of his reporting career. Fellow reporters, editors, photographers, and other acquaintances looked out from pictures taken in the world's capitals and war zones, places Jack had been a correspondent. He and I had crossed paths several times at the courthouse, where he covered motions and trials, and I, a bike courier, dropped off and picked up legal papers. But we didn't get to know each other until the Friday night I'd literally backed into him in a tiny, crowded Asian grocery. When, after a few minutes of conversation, he asked me if I wanted company for dinner, I surprised myself by saying yes. Maybe it had been so long since I'd seen a guy who was neither a metrosexual nor a pierced and dreadlocked bike messenger that he had been exotic to me. He was the first guy I ever slept with who wore boxer shorts. I didn't tell him that our first night together. Guys have lost erections over less. Now, as I was pulling on my long-sleeved thermal shirt and cargo pants, Jack said, "Are you hungry? There's bagels." I shook my head. "I'll eat later." It was my day off, and a small plan for the morning was forming. I sat on the floor to put on my boots. When I looked up, Jack was watching me. He said, "Every time I see you lacing up those boots, I think I'm sleeping with an undercover DEA agent." Baits and forcers, heavy-soled black lace-ups with a side zip, draw a lot of attention. They're comfortable as all. Jack had never seen the gun. It was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson airweight, easy to conceal. Just 5 shots, but the kind of trouble I was likely to get into was the up-close and personal kind, and if I couldn't get out of it with 5 rounds, I wasn't getting out of it at all. I stood and gathered up my single-strap messenger bag, putting it over my shoulder, when the newspapers on the counter caught my attention. "Are you done with this?" I asked, indicating the Los Angeles Times calendar section, its front page dominated by a profile of a young white hip-hop producer. "Can I have it?" "Sure," Jack said. I slid the section of the paper into my bag, then walked ahead of Jack into the entryway where my bicycle, it was my private transportation as well as my livelihood, leaned against the wall. We emerged into the cool gray of June in San Francisco, me wheeling the bike and Jack holding the keys to his old Saab. He stopped for a moment, tapping a cigarette out of a pack, his first of the day. While he lit up, I looked downhill, toward the rest of the city. Jack's studio was at the edge of Parnassus Heights, and the view was fantastic. It's hard to find anyone who doesn't find San Francisco beautiful, and I couldn't argue. I had been in San Francisco nearly a year. I had ridden every inch of its neighborhoods, the storied ones like Chinatown and North Beach, the quiet ones like the Sunset and Presidio Heights. Late at night, I had watched the lights of great container ships as they ghosted into the port of Oakland, across the water. I had seen this city in the rain, the sun, the fog, the moonlight, on moonless evenings illuminated by its own city lights. San Francisco seemed to pose for you endlessly, proving it could look beautiful under any conditions. People came from all over the country and paid exorbitant prices to own or rent a tiny part of San Francisco. Only a Philistine could stand on a hill, look out at San Francisco, and wish she were seeing the overheated sprawl of LA instead. But I did.